So, David, you've been writing about Wells Fargo for quite some time, and it's almost as if Wells Fargo, as an entity, is saying, like, look, we're going to let you digest one horrible scandal and one horrible thing that we have done as company policy, and then once you've digested it, we're going to another one's going to come out.
Right.
And so let's just go back to and this is even like after we're talking about their involvement in the mortgage crisis and whatnot. Let's just give us some of their greatest hits in coming up to the most
Sure.
latest hit and the call to put them and then us out of their misery.
So just to preface the whole discussion, Wells Fargo has cultivated a reputation for many, many years as being the quote-unquote good bank. If you talk to any business reporter, Wells Fargo representatives will tell you, we're not into any of that fancy derivative stuff. We are not involved with, we're just trying to get good, support and financial services to our consumers. We're the good bank. And so let's see how that's gone. So we started last year when we found out that first it was over 2 million fake accounts were created by Wells Fargo to achieve high sales figures that they set for their banking representatives. It turns out now that number is closer to 3.5 million, and where they initially said this started in 2009, there's now evidence that goes back to at least 2002.
And David, to be clear, when you say fake accounts, it's not like they made up the names of people. They actually associated these accounts with customers. I mean, just explain that dynamic so the people get a sense.
They took real names, and sometimes they made dummy emails attached to them, but they wanted to create a situation where each customer had a number of different accounts. The target was 8 accounts per customer. And so what they did is every time a customer came in, they would just put them down for accounts that they never authorized and never said they wanted. And sometimes this put the individuals in trouble because they would have to shift money around and populate these accounts with money to activate them, to show that they were indeed accounts and get credit for their sales goals. There was all sorts of shenanigans that did hurt borrowers, millions of dollars.
And then the CEO basically claimed, like, hey, there was a few bad apples that coincidentally had the exact same idea.
Right. They fired about 5,000 workers. They said that this was at the line level, that this was the problem there. And it turns out that senior managers were completely aware of this, that this was a decided strategy. And let's say the fake account strategy was an investor fraud strategy. They were showing to investors that they were increasing their sales growth quarter after quarter after quarter, and they were doing it by forcing their workers to meet these high sales goals and leading them down the path of creating these fake accounts. And they knew this, yet they were telling investors, yes, we are making more money on these accounts every single quarter. So that's what the real scandal of the fake account scandal was, that they were lying to their own investors.
Okay, so that is the fake account scandal. Let's move, and we really do need to name these because it can get very complicated. You can lose track. Let's move to the auto insurance scandal.
Right. This one is much worse, I think, in terms of what the effect on consumers. So Wells Fargo, they partner with a lot of car dealerships to finance auto loans. And apparently what they did was they set up that additional collision insurance would be automatically placed onto the account holders when they signed up for an auto loan. So, and they did not, again, this was unwanted, and it was also unbeknownst to the actual borrowers. So they would have this extra $50 a month, $100 a month charge that was being automatically deducted out of their accounts that they didn't know about, and that they might have already had in terms of their own auto insurance. It was duplicative. So this apparently affected 800,000 borrowers, although Wells Fargo says only 570,000, but a report they commissioned said 800,000. So they're disagreeing with their own internal report. And this caused at least 250,000 unnecessary delinquencies and 25,000 repossessions of cars because they put this unwanted, force-placed auto insurance onto people's auto loans.
I mean, and this was going on from at least 2012 to 2017. How does it take so long?
What we know now is that you don't take the first figure from Wells Fargo. Like, there's always more down the road. And let me just add in rapid fire that they've also been accused of making, unbeknownst to mortgage customers, that they've changed the terms of loans in bankruptcy, that they have secretly added fees onto mortgage borrowers through when they come in for applications. There are a host of these. There's another lawsuit with an investor where Wells Fargo is, involved in securitization and mortgage bonds, and the trustee, that they were using the investor's money to pay the legal fees in cases against the investors. This is what Wells Fargo does. And, this is really a partial list, but all of these have come up in the last month.
Well, now, why is it that they've come up in just the last month? And I want to get to they're attempting to bury that scandal that is associated with arbitration clauses, and we'll get to that at the break. But why is it? Why do you think this is all coming up now? I mean, why are we? Is it that once the first scandal hit, a lot of people were like, hey, maybe Wells Fargo, they like to pretend that they weren't involved in like all the sort of like the Goldman Sachs-y or the J.P. Morgan Chase type of securitization, and then someone realized like, oh, these guys are just involved in good old-fashioned vanilla, basically fraud or theft.
Fraud and theft. When the scandal came out last year, it attracted a lot of unwanted attention on Wells Fargo. So it could be the case that all of a sudden there's a spotlight on this company, and more of these things which might have been in the background suddenly come to light. I mean, the auto insurance thing came out of an internal report that got leaked to the New York Times. So Wells Fargo obviously is trying to deal with and stage manage these problems internally. But now that they have this reputation, more of this stuff is getting out.
Unbelievable. All right. Well, look, we got to take a break here. When we come back, let's talk about the other massive scandal that Wells Fargo is trying to bury. And then we'll just talk briefly about, your suggestion that it's time for Wells Fargo to get the corporate death penalty. We got to take a quick break. I'm talking to the great David Dayen. My name is Sam Seder. This is Ring of Fire Radio. We'll be back in just a moment.